Whose birthday?
Like me.
Oh, is that right? Seeing as how it's 10 o'clock, we'll call this meeting to order. Notice the meeting was properly posted January 15, 2025. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Marissa Treat. What would you like?
Whatever you want. Here's the Butch. Hey, looky, there's Butch.
Is that what you were asking for?
I was talking about Cassie, but either way. Will you call? Oh, I said Madam. Madam Clerk, will you do roll call? Yeah. Sorry.
You, madam.
Yes, I will.
Yeah, my bad. Yes.
Always.
Always.
Sheriff Tommy Johnson.
Present.
Rick Warren.
Marissa Treat.
Miles Davidson.
Butch Freeman. Larry Stein.
Like I heard it. All right.
I see.
Ms. Treat, would you like to do our Pledge of Allegiance?
Stand.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item of business. Oh, sorry. That's what he did to embarrass you.
Yeah, sign me off. Boy, Brian, when you get to no longer be chairman, they almost moved you off the podium.
It's good.
Ready? All right. First item is approval of minutes. Is there a motion?
Unless there are changes, move approval.
Second. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Motion passes. Item number 2. Or item 2 through 2 through 27 is the consent. Is there a motion to move the consent?
I would.
3 through 27, doesn't it?
That's 2, but if there's not individual consideration, or if there is.
Yes, I would like to do 2 through 14 and 18 through 26 together.
So your first motion will be 2 through 14?
Yes, sir.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second for items 2 through 14. All those in favor?
Aye.
Second motion, 18 through 26 together.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. So for individual consideration, do you want to take those items now? Who's not?
Sure.
That would be item 15.
So I have questions, a couple questions on that one. That one, is court services, and I believe that I know that there's been conversations going on, I believe in BET recently too, about the past invoices that we have related to the DA's contract and related to the vendor contract. And I wanted to see where we were on deciding when they're going to get paid and what fund they're getting paid out of.
Typically, that would be a Cody question. I don't know, or a Miranda.
Joe's coming around the corner here, Mr. Chairman.
Gotcha.
Good morning. I was instructed by P&G that we'll go ahead and process the outstanding invoices from the same fund that this cash appropriation was made into, and then we'll evaluate at P&G in February.
Okay, and so that will be for the past invoices that we have with the DA's contract and the past invoices that we have with the vendor contract.
Yes, ma'am. That will cover the full. It was $21,000, I believe, $669 and some change. It would cover the full balance.
Okay, that's great.
Yes,
ma'am. No, sir. I just I knew that was an ongoing discussion, and since we were moving funds, wanted to make sure that we were planning to make payments. Right, no, I understand the
But I can give
agenda
you
item.
an explanation if you want. further
Sure, if you would like.
So what we're going to be doing is there's an outstanding.
Jessica, I'm sorry, would you mind just
Yes,
so
I
that?
would. Yeah, thank you. There's several outstanding invoices from August until December in regards to Allied that we need to pay for GPS plus loss damages, which was a little over $21,000. So we're revising the contract with MOU with the DA and BOCC in order to be able to make sure we're covering the cost for GPS services, to make sure that we're covering the cost for any indigent services, and that will be billed separately, and then also be able to provide a cell phone stipend for Kathy. So she's not using her personal use. So we'll create a budget, we'll revise the MOU with the DA, and then any additional expenses to exceed what we have left available will have to go to BET.
So the county phone will go to the DA employee that manages the GPS services.
Yes, ma'am. And then they're going to have the contract with Allied Universal moving forward, so that way the new MOU can be on a reimbursement rather than a flat rate.
Okay, so we'll continue to pay for those.
Yes,
the county.
We'll continue to pay, but it'll be between them, so that way they can pay it and we can reimburse them for those
Great,
services.
I'm so glad that got
we're
worked out.
working on it. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. All right, motion to approve.
All three of them?
No, 15.
Or just 15?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Before we start on item number 16, Judge Ogden, what are you here for? And let's get you back in court where you belong.
So I'm here on item number 37, and just that's with regard to the $5.3 million to build out the courtrooms at the Juvenile Justice Center, just to answer any questions, and then also to the extent that I need to add anything that Keith might have to say about that, then just urge the approval of 37.
All right. Are there any questions on item 37?
Move item 37.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you. Sorry to take your time up. All right. Thanks for your indulgence. Back to item number 16 now, which is the cash fund appropriation for Shine Fund.
Yes, I'm just curious as to where we are at with the Shine program.
What do you mean where we're at? That's
just kind of a general update on Shine and who's managing it. I know there's been some changes.
Shine is now managed by Team. And I would tell you that this, and Brian, stop me if I'm wrong here, but this is a appropriation from probably adjudications. Is that right, Brian? That this money is from?
It's from the city, local city, it's monthly.
There you go.
Per the contract.
I'm sorry, Brady, would you mind the microphone? Just since we do stream live, it's hard to hear people in the audience.
Yeah, no problem. What was the question again?
No, go ahead with what you said.
These appropriations are just monthly income that's come in based on the City of Oklahoma City contract that they have for the work that Shine does for them. There's probably also a little bit there from the zoo contract as well.
Okay, that's great information. Thank you. Motion to pass.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion clearly passes. Item number 17.
I'm curious as to who is managing this program. And then I have another follow-up question as to could these funds be used for the new behavioral health center? Is there any potential connection?
Okay, regarding our grants in general, at this week's Policy and Governance meeting, we are moving forward with recruitment and hiring of that position. And so in the meantime, we'll continue to look at the watch list and what grants are currently in process. So that one specifically is with the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse. That one, I believe is already been finalized, and that's the amount. I don't know a whole lot of specifics about that one.
Is there an employee at the county that's managing this
There,
program and watching the funds? And
that would have been our grants administrator. Or
so
grants
is there an
specialist.
interim person right now?
That is what we're working on in regards to identifying. We kind of split the funds or the different grants that are still being worked on, such as our opioid abatement grant, our 781 funds. That was a Senate bill, and also a grant with DEQ in regards to equipment. But we have not identified an individual person in order to take on that responsibility until that person is hired.
Okay. Do we have any obligations that we need to be making sure we're not missing, since it is a grant, different requirements with federal or state? Or I know grants have.
The ones that I just listed are the ones that are still in the works, but there's always compliance and reporting.
Right.
What we can use eventually, once we decide to start looking at different ways to be able to utilize funding, is we do have an opioid settlement that we can utilize towards opioid abatement. It's could possibly use towards the detention center and services, and then we also have a dual settlement that could be used towards anything except for lobbying. So to answer that question, if there's some things that we could use towards, our detention center and services, there are available funding for that at some time.
That's great. That's great. I am concerned with not having an interim person to manage these programs, because I know you said that there's discussion about these funds and these different programs, but there has to be an employee that's managing that, an employee that's a part of those discussions to make sure that the checks, the balances happen.
And I agree. At policy and governance, another thing that we also did is the supervision for both the grants specialist as well as the financial support specialist. Both report to HR, and so really that falls under the supervisory of Karen Kent. And so,
Okay.
My personal opinion, then that's something that Karen could also be following up, since she's supervising those positions, to make sure that there's not anything, or assigned to somebody within possibly her team to help her make sure there's nothing falling through the cracks. But policy and governance will still be aware of the grants that are outstanding that we need to continue to move forward in securing, and then we won't be applying for any new grants until that person is hired.
And I know that later in this agenda, or maybe it's a different agenda, I'm not confused about, but Miranda, my understanding is, falls under Karen Kent, correct? Okay. So within that space, that would be the staff that would be watching this to make sure that we're not missing deadlines.
I believe that would be most
Okay.
appropriate, since they report to that department.
Until you find somebody. I just want to make sure we don't miss deadlines.
I agree. That was also my concern, and we spent a lot of time in that in policy and governance. But specific to this one, without having the file, I don't have a lot of the details just top of mind, but I can definitely look into it after.
Right, yeah. And then specific to this being a mental health grant, and then of course, as we're looking at the behavioral health center, there's obviously an interest in how those could tie together. So thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.
Motion to pass.
Second.
There's motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion clearly passes. Item 18.
We did 18.
Good, 18. Item number 28.
Good morning.
I think we need 27 real quick.
You did item 27 in your
Oh, we did. Okay. And I will just note, the only reason I had 27, I thought separated, is because for some reason I thought there needed to be further explanation because of an agenda item later on. But if that was in the motion earlier, I thought it was being helpful to somebody else.
They both have to go together. This one,
27
this one
and
appropriates the funds, and then when we get on 37, I think it is, we'll do
30.
the actual cash.
I think it's 35, sir.
35, yeah, okay.
So sorry about that.
You okay? I am here to present the December monthly financials. Looking at page 2, the reserve balance as of December 31st is $8,671,114. There are no, going on to page 3. There are no pending transactions for any reserve transfers, so we will not see any adjustments in that available budget for available funds in the reserve account. On that's general funds. Going on to page 4, on the general fund cash balance, we currently have $48,630,006 available in cash. Looking at the next page, page 5, the general fund actual comparison, prior year, so 24, looking at 25, the revenue has increased by 5.7%. Looking at that in dollar figures, that's about $2.6 million increase in our cash value. Moving on over to the employee benefits fund, page 6. The employee benefits cash balance is $1,570,930. And so we are doing really good on that end as well. The medical and prescription claim comparison, John will go over in his presentation. Going over to page 8 on the employee benefits funds prior year comparison. Just looking at the cash as a whole, we are about 5.2% increase in our cash compared to this time last year. So we have more cash on hand. And then finally, looking at the capital project budget, page 9. Total unallocated capital funds is $9,407,504. And that will conclude the summary of the monthly financials for December. Is there any questions, comments, or concerns? All right, thank you.
Seeing no questions, is there a motion to receive?
Motion to receive.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item number 29. Mr. Compton.
Good morning. We have no changes to the watch list this month. We're still monitoring several items. Currently, we have $8,671,114.36 in the reserve account, of which $7,208,347.25 are the one-time funds that we can't anticipate, next year. And then we have for ongoing operations, $1,462,767.11. That is all I have for you this morning. You're welcome.
Any questions of Mr. Compton? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Motion to accept.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion clearly passes. Item 30, Mr. Wilkerson.
Good morning. Just to reiterate what Brooke was touching on, employee benefits is doing well this year. This report compares claims paid through January 6th of this month compared to the same period last year. Medical, we are seeing 11% decline, or 988,000. Prescription claims are down about 5%, or 346,000. So altogether, doing very well. That's all I have, unless you have any questions.
Any questions?
All credit to the employees of Oklahoma County.
A great job that you're doing, John. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, is there a motion?
Motion.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion clearly passes. Item number 31. Mr. Steiner,
We
recliner.
have no report this week. As you all know, Brandy has tendered her resignation. They're looking for a new director.
Mr. Stein, if you would like, our office has printed out the budget for the jail, and Brooke is prepared to give a basic overview and has copies of it. We can't answer any in the weeds questions because we just process as you know, but if you'd like a copy of it, or if you'd like Brooke to give a simple explanation of what we have, she's prepared.
The idea was that we would be able to get more information about what was going on to repair and maintain the jail, and I'm disappointed that we don't get something like that either by a report every month from them or in a regular basis of the repairs that are being completed, because I know they're doing that all the time. And when I go out and I get asked questions about what's going on with the jail, I'd like to have some information. And I hope that would be something that could be provided, and apparently it can't, and I'm disappointed.
I understand. I actually would like to go ahead, if okay by the chairman, to have Britt come up and present the information that we do have, and she could pass out copies.
Seeing any objection? All right.
It'll be short.
Like a herd of turtles. Yeah.
Don't hide your feelings.
Where we're at.
Thank you, Britt. Again, Brooke will not be able to get into the weeds, but this is the information that we do have related to the funding of the jail current.
So the item that's going around is a year-to-date budget report, and just a quick snapshot. The $2,008,707, that is the approved budget in the beginning. The $21,857,014.88 under the revised budget, column 2. That is the year-end close receipts and the encumbrances and the carry forwards amount. The year-to-date expenses, and this is looking at period 7. I pulled this report yesterday morning. So the year-to-date expenses is about $17 million. And then the encumbrances, that's the total POs that they have encumbered, is $1.9 million in column 5. And then the last column, the available budget, reflects the available budget, available funds that they have. We do about 1/12 on their monthly apportionments that they give. That's about $2 million roughly on that as well that they get on a monthly basis. So that's a snapshot of them financially, and that's all I can give you right now.
Thank you, Brooke.
Thank you.
Any questions? Seeing none. No reason to take any action. Item 32, discussion and status, feasibility, and adequacy of plan for funding. Ms. Tree.
Yes, I thought that it would be good for us to continue the discussion about the funding of the Behavioral Health Center between all of us. We all know that this is really the only platform that we have for all of us to be together to discuss this, other than our staff and BET meetings. So really looking to see what the business plan is for once the construction is complete. My understanding is that we have the funding to build the building, but what are we going to do to pay for it once it's built? How are we paying for the current jail that we have? Because we also know that we're going to really have to run both at the same time. And so I don't know that there's going to be, a bunch of solutions or final answers today, but I do think that it's responsible of us as budget board members to have these conversations. And so just want to start the dialogue and see if anyone else has questions on this as well.
I believe there was something in the paper, maybe I read it even today, but what is the anticipated completion date of this facility?
September 26th. Or 26th, yeah.
September 26th. Okay. So, and granted, September 26th will be here tomorrow. But so from a funding standpoint, then September 26th, we're going to have this clearly solved and the funds identified. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Okay.
Long before September 26th.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I agree with that, but I know it's
the day-to-day operation. The planning for the cost of the day-to-day operation. That's everything from water to employees, electricity, the day-to-day operation. We need to have that plan on the table as quickly as possible.
And so who is leading that plan? Who's going to be doing that?
County commissioners.
Who?
County commissioners.
Oh. Thank you for your answer.
Their staff, their office, I'm sure the fact that they're gonna build something, that they've been thinking about how to pay for the day-to-day operations. We don't want it to open up and we have no money for staffing, no money to keep the bills up. So I'm sure their staff has been working, I have confidence in the commissioners that they've been working on a day-to-day plan to get that and have that money set aside and be ready for it.
Yeah, I think it's a fair question. Certainly, you don't want to open up something, then financially we come back and say that we can't, afford it. And, certainly have questions when it talks about this. I've heard, the utilization of private health care, Medicare and Medicaid, but, understanding that the law enforcement aspect, that when someone is in a correctional facility or, is arrested, that you can't utilize Medicare and Medicaid. So just wanting to understand, how's this going to operate financially? Because I don't want to put us in a situation where we say something's going to help us out, or we're going to make money off of it, or it's going to cost less than it essentially costs more.
We're stepping into an area we've never been in. We're not in the mental health business. They can say we are because we run a county jail, but by all human, you should not put people that are mentally sick in a jail. So hopefully we're not doing that. But as far as the mental health side of this, there is hospitals, there's agencies, and people that's their business. It was mentioned to me by, I forget which commissioner, that we could lease it out to one of them. Well, we're not in the private sector business. We don't build buildings for other people to lease out. That's not what we really do. So I think, and I'm pretty confident, because I know there's some bright young people working for our commissioners, and I know they're very bright, that they have a plan, and they will share it with us.
Okay.
And
So where's the plan?
I haven't seen it myself.
Or you cause trouble.
Yeah, I mean,
She's new. She's new.
I agree. I mean, I know that there's the commissioners and the jail trust, but are working on some of these issues. I think because there is going to be a need to pay for it, and there will have to be budget board conversations, that it is important for the budget board to be a part of these conversations.
Totally agree.
And be able to have a healthy dialogue. I mean, that's really what we're looking at. I mean, as the commissioners are, a lot of weight is on your shoulders, and you guys are the front of this, and you guys have to answer the press questions, and you all have a ton, again, of weight on your shoulders. And I understand that, and I respect that. And we're here as your partner. We're here as a team. And I know thoughts that some have about raising these discussions here in the budget board meeting, but I think it's incredibly important that we do have these conversations together as a group. And unfortunately, we can't all get together in a conference room and talk this out because we're legally not allowed to. So I understand that there probably needs to be continued meetings with the Department of Mental Health and others, but I would respectfully ask that the commissioners share, where you're at and what you're thinking, and allow us to provide questions to you that you can take and bring back to answer. I mean, we're a partner in this, and no one wants to build a building that we can't pay for. No one wants to have two buildings out there that we have no clue of how to pay those bills. We all want this done right. We all have an interest, not just as a budget board member, but we have interest as a citizen, and we care a lot. So I'm happy to provide some questions to the commissioners, if that makes it a little bit easier, maybe for the next budget board meeting. And then if you guys could provide some updates, or if we have some guests come in to share. But I definitely think that we owe it to the taxpayers to have a plan as to how we are going to not only fund the construction of the jail, but maintaining the current jail and the operations moving forward. So with that, I would ask if the commissioners have any updates for us.
Commissioner Mon, anything? Discussions are being had, just as I reported last time, with those stakeholders that are involved with this. And once a plan is put together, it'll be brought around to each one of you to discuss. Because the one thing you are right about is that it's going to take all of us. And if you've got any ideas, you feel free. You can put your ideas out there just as anybody else can. But this has been studied for numerous years. It has been studied by numerous committees, by anything from a grand jury to citizen committees of blue ribbons and everything under the sun. And they put it all together. I don't think it's any great secret of what we're looking at and the way that we're going to be able to fund this thing. It's just what does that plan look like? And what is that amount? Those negotiations are being had with not only each individual commissioner's office, but with the community stakeholders. Sheriff, to answer your question, how can we do Medicare and Medicaid? It's because it's a behavioral health center and not an incarceration center. So the behavioral health care center aspect, the way that the federal law is written, and the state law, we're actually able to charge back for that. Private insurance can also be charged on a behavioral health center. That's the reason for the 75-foot separation in between the behavioral health center and the jail. It's been extensively studied by not only HOK, but other jails across the country that do the exact same thing. And so that's something that we're not outside the norm by doing this. We're actually finally coming into the norm on the way that we'll be doing that. And Mr. Warren's absolutely correct. The budget that has been put together for the management and operation of the jail has been done by our architects, by the engineer's office, by jail consultants. We have a pretty good idea within a pretty small dollar amount of what it's going to cost at the new facility. The one thing that the commissioners understand is we're not the experts in this field, so we've actually gone out and we've hired the experts to tell us how to do this. All these plans have been put forth time and time again in all sorts of different meetings that we've had, public meetings that your staffs, they're part of public records. They've been around all over the place. You can go to Stacy Trumbo's engineer's office and pick any of those up. So if you'd like to use him as an intermediary, it's probably a good idea because he may be able to answer your questions before they even get to us, which is probably a good idea.
Well, before we end this, so we have a good description, we're not really partners, as I'm not trying to say you're wrong, but we're the budget board. We decide how the money's spent. We're a budget board county. Each one of us wear a different hat. Description of me, I'm the gray file cabinet in the corner. I keep the records. You commissioners are the landlords. I don't have say-so on the buildings. You do. I don't have say-so on how it's going to build. You do. And I have faith in you. I think you're doing a good job. So I know that you guys are working not on the cost of the building. We know what that's going to cost, 44 plus million. But what we don't know is the day-to-day operations. We don't know how many doctors, how many employees. And I would love a legal opinion, maybe from our legal staff, that the Medicare and the Medicaid is going to pay it. Not only nationwide, we've done some research and they say, yes, they'll pay under these rules.
Yep.
But do we truly qualify? Does our attorneys, who we have complete confidence in, do they believe that this is all going to line up and work for us? And as landlords, you guys have to stay on top of that.
The state's also going through the process right now to actually receive a Medicare and Medicaid waiver for not only DOC, but the entire state, which would cover all the jails as well. There's about 7 other states, I believe, across the country that are leading the way to get this done. So that's also coming down the pike, if you will.
So it will cover if they're incarcerated.
Yeah.
Because they are incarcerated.
Yeah.
They don't have a key.
Yeah. And that's what I'll say, and I say it respectfully. I know when you say, the the people in the room, the stakeholders who are involved are the ones that are around the table, but I don't know myself or another chief or any law enforcement official who has been invited to have these conversations, and it's our guys who are going to be tasked to bring individuals or introduce them into this facility. And, I hear, when we talk about, this has been done across the United States. Well, we're significantly different because our revenue stream, we only ad valorem. There's no other sales tax. When we look at areas like Nashville, what I believe was the project where we kind of got our idea from. They have a 60-bed space. They only fill about 30 beds at a time. So 30 people can't pay for a 60-bed, and all the utilities go. So I want you guys to be nothing but successful. That's all I want. This is not adversarial. This is simply, can we put our heads together so with the product we put out, you succeed? That's all I want. Yeah. Because
Sheriff, I don't think that we're there to the point to where we bring your particular side of the stakeholders in yet. I think we're rapidly approaching that. And I think we're probably maybe a week or two away from that, and about bringing law enforcement people in and giving them an idea of the way that booking and receiving and everything is going to work going forward. So, you're right with Nashville, that was part of it, but there's been Orange County in Florida that we took a big chunk away from, and there's other jails across the country that we visited that and used the successful parts of their models, because even Nashville said that there's doesn't fill up because they have so many private partners with their mental health, but our mental health across the entire state. All you got to do is pick up a paper. It's failing across the entire state, Department of Mental Health. So we don't have the bed space now. We have an individual that's been in our custody for almost 200 days awaiting bed space. And we've got a litany of those. So if we had this facility, it wouldn't be as big of a rush to get these individuals out, and we'd be able to partner with Department of Mental Health, which would pay us to actually maintain these individuals and bring them back to competency on site. So those are a lot of the conversations that I'm more than happy to sit down, and when the time is right, and we're almost there, when that time is right, to sit down with everybody and put forth what the exact plan is, how everything's going to operate, how we're going to suggest to pay for it. And, the commissioners still have to hash out that one giant aspect of how are we going to pay for it. Not only the construction, but the operation. You're absolutely right. Because most counties across the country, over 60% of their budget goes to their jail operations. So ours is $37 million out of a $130 million budget. So we're under on that. The AG has said our first constitutional duty, even as a budget board county, is to fund and operate that jail. So that's one of the things that we're going to have to look at.
I don't think that's quite the quote.
I don't
I think there's several offices.
Which one?
Constitutional. My office is constitutional duty.
No.
It's
released one. He released an AG, not the AG's opinion that was just released. The one that was released previously.
No,
Talks about operating the jail.
I'd like to see it.
We can get you that.
But here's the problem we got, and I know Tommy and I agree with Ms. Treat. The problem is before we put a shovel in the ground, before we put a shovel in the ground to build something, we need to know that we have a plan to fund it, and it's not by coming and taking up from other budgets, because right now we're barely getting by. I guarantee you Tommy could use more, needs more. In my office, we're adding courtrooms constantly, and I have to add employees when we do. Every courtroom has my employees in it, so we can't come in a year from now, year and a half from now, September, and say each one of you are going to have to put up 25% of your budget, because it won't work. That plan will not work. And I've done a lot of businesses myself and own real estate and manage it. And I promise you, before I build a building, before I build an apartment complex, before I build houses, I know exactly what the rent's going to be. I know how I'm going to rent it. My plan is when I'm getting the money is when I have the plan, not when I'm building. I get the plan put together. So I know you guys are working on it, because I know each one of you, and I know it. So as soon as you could, share it with us. Let us know how we're gonna pay for the day-to-day operation. I know how you're gonna build it. I know where that money's coming from, but I don't know how you're gonna pay for the gas bill.
And you know, that brings me just to another quick topic, and then I'm done. You know, when you use terms like, you know, bring back to competency, that is a legal term that you give to, you know, a psychologist, and they have to define that, and that individual is still in custody. And so is this like for me, for law enforcement, is this a correctional facility? Is this a jail? Or is this open to the public?
It's not open to the public, it's a behavioral health care center.
I have a question. What's the relationship of the jail trust with this behavioral center?
That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that. If that's going to be something that, you know, the county would like the jail trust to assume operation of. My personal thought and the discussions that we've had is that my office and I have had personally is Oklahoma Department of Mental Health would come in and manage and operate the facility, and they would be the operators for that facility, not jail trust. They're the professionals. They're the professionals in the state. It would be our building, our people, but they would be the ones managing and operating it. But those are the discussions that I personally have had that I will bring to the other commissioners soon.
I appreciate it. And they are important conversations. I know that there was some issues with Department of Mental Health paying some of their bills to the jail. So when we look at the future and Department of Mental Health providing funds to our jail, if they're not paying the bills to the current jail, we've got to have these real conversations, right? I mean, they're very important, and there is some reality to that. And I do have faith in the Department of Mental Health and the secretary there. I hope that they have the bandwidth to be able to support us on that. I'm very interested in those conversations. And I do plan to reach out to visit as well, because while I understand everybody's roles, at the end of the day, it's the taxpayers' dollars, and we are all elected to be responsible, to ask questions, and to be a part of these discussions as budget board members to ensure that we have the funding and that we're spending it properly. So just so you know, I will, and as you probably already know, I will continue to ask questions, but doing it genuinely to try to help us move forward to do really what's best for the county. And I am a little bit concerned with the piece of the Department of Mental Health, because I know there's been a lot of questions related to that topic moving forward. But with that, I do not have any other questions today, but I will submit some questions to the commissioners. I'll email them to you individually, and happy to provide a copy to the budget board as well, so that we are all fully transparent.
I'd like one more thing. Miles, you said that nationally counties spend 60%. You said there was a study and they spent. Can I get a copy of that study?
Yeah, absolutely. It's we'll get that to you. It's NACO,
Yeah, I'd like to get
National Association of County Officials, that actually puts that
They're
together.
spending 60%.
Well, 50 to 60% is the national average, yeah, of your
that
yearly
study.
budgets. But you got to consider, most counties have a much larger budget than us, especially the size of our county. And I've got data on like-sized counties and their budget size, and even I think the smallest, but and these numbers are probably 2 years old at this point, but even the smallest budget, ours compared to theirs with a like-size population, they were almost, if I remember correctly, almost 3 times as much as our budget. So
To me, that implies that we should take 3 times 60% of our budget and spend it at the jail, and
Right.
we can't do that. Yeah. And that's what I'm worried about. I'm worried we're going to end up with a building that we have to take 60% to fund these things, that we're getting outside what our expertise is.
The with the reports that we have from HOK, it looks like it's going to be $75 to $80 million to operate, which is currently we're doing 37. So yeah, it's going to be more expensive. The reason it's more expensive is because it's more the type of supervision is different. It's a in-person direct supervision. It's what DOJ is asking everybody to move to. Those are the types of things. But yes, we're going to have to find, there's no way we could actually responsibly build a new jail without having the money to, one, build it, because we can't afford it now.
We don't have the money for that.
We don't have the money to build it. We only did a quarter of what we needed. Then we have a third, a little more than a third, what we need to be able to hire and operate that facility. So you're absolutely right. The responsibility of operating the new jail and building the new jail without a financial plan, it doesn't make sense to even put a shovel in the dirt. Now, with the Behavioral Health Care Center, I will tell you that we can't afford not to build it. We'll have to even build it or operate it. And if we need to take money that we're currently using for the jail trust to treat these individuals and move that over, then that's something that we'll have to consider at that time. But those are things that
right now, even at the jail trust, what we've created over there is where we're now hiring the doctors ourselves. We're now responsible for the insurance. We went from a program where we had a company that did it. We had a set cost. We knew I was going. They provided the insurance. Now we no longer have that. You can see us getting deeper in the water.
Yep. Any other questions? Seeing none. Item 33.
Miles, your last statement there was a good segue into this agenda item. The BET has had for the last few months an agenda item, a recurring agenda item that Budget Board wanted us looking at how we were going to move forward with the process of building the new jail. The members around the table are kind of unclear exactly the direction that you guys are wanting from us. And so instead of sitting around the table guessing what it was that Budget Board was wanting, we felt that it would be best to come to Budget Board and ask a little bit more, for a little more specificity as far as what you are looking for from us, as far as recommendations, as far as studies, what you guys are wanting.
Anybody?
I made the motion, and go ahead. Mr. Warren, did you want to talk?
Go ahead.
I made the motion. Sorry, it wasn't clear. I went back and read and watched it. I'm a little confused as to why everyone's confused, but I have a new motion, which be that BET discusses and provides recommendation to the Budget Board regarding the new jail construction, maintenance of the current jail, and ongoing operational expenses for both facilities. That is my motion on the table. But I would like to know from you, Cody, if there's any confusion with that motion before we officially move forward with it.
So are you referencing just the funding aspect of building the new jail and running the new jail?
The new jail, the maintenance of the current jail, ongoing expenses would be for both facilities. Because as we discussed in the earlier agenda item, we're going to have both for a while. Obviously, once there's only one jail, that's a different conversation. But really, this motion would tie into the conversation we just had.
Right. So a financial plan on how we could achieve an optimized situation running a new jail and running the current jail, as well as the ongoing operational expenses related.
Yes, sir. And the questions that I referenced earlier that I'd be happy to share with the commissioners, that could be potentially helpful. We give it to BET. Maybe Absolutely. All of us come together and come up with additional questions that we could provide. But to me, it's clear. We need a plan. And my understanding of BET is to come up with recommendations for funding things. So I hope that helps.
Do we currently have a concept drawing when we've hired an architect? Do we actually have a set of plans?
I think they're on their final
So,
What do they call the final step of, it's.
so
when
we
they're doing
really
electrical
can't
and
even put
everything.
allowances together. We can't put prices together on what a jail's gonna cost until we have a set of plans, because then we know exactly how much dirt we're gonna be moving. We'll know what steel and iron we need, what density our concrete's gonna have to be. There's all kinds of things that cost, and those are allowances. Each little item is an allowance. And so the architect and engineers will get together. Once they all get together and do their duty, then we'll get allowances, and then we'll know when the jail comes in. If we build a 2,400 bed jail, I would estimate the cost would be probably around 900 million. We'll be lucky to keep it under $1 billion, but somebody said they could do it for 600. My company wouldn't do it for 600, but anyway, we won't know those items until we get a set of plans completed. And so right now you just speculate. And then we've got to decide the size. I mean, we said 2,400 beds, but I understand we went down to 1,800, and then somebody said 600 and keep both jails open. But we can't do that because you'll find out it costs the same money to operate the new one as it does the old one, maybe more. And the old costs will still be right there too. So you're going to double your costs. Once again, we don't have the budget. We don't have a sales tax. We don't have extra money coming in. If people buy more, we get more. It doesn't work that way. So what we got to do is get our set of plans, get our costs, analyze all that, and then determine if we're going to be able to build this new jail. But we're going to need help, and it's going to take all of us.
Right, and with the motion, there's not a timeline start or finish, right? So there's obviously more information that needs to be gathered, but I would hope that BET would be able to maybe divide that up among the members. Some people take on different pieces to gather the information. I mean, that's my understanding of the function of BET, is to gather information, discuss it, and then come up with recommendations for the budget board. Is that wrong?
We do make financial recommendations to the board. We generally have not, as a group, gone out and done investigatory work and that kind of stuff. It's been more of a particular office wants to do a project, and that office will provide the information that the group needs. And if they don't provide enough information, the group will ask for more or whatever. But it's never been a full group effort on investigatory.
And this is
work.
outside your expertise. Once again, this will be the architect. The architect, when he finishes the plans, he'll turn them over to the engineer to make sure what he draws can be built. And so the engineer will go over the plans, and then together they'll do the allowances and tell us what it's going to cost us to build. And then we'll lock those prices in to try to hold them for a year, and so that the companies that provide us with the materials don't raise the price and inflation don't get us. And then once we lock everything in, then we'll start construction. But
right.
That's who will give us the number, is the architects.
I agree, understand, but they would ideally give that to BET, and then BET would collect all of the information, and then they would come back with a recommendation. I personally think that it would be extremely helpful for BET to do this, not just with the jail, but many other things that we look at. I mean, when the staff comes to bring recommendation to us, I just assume that you guys are having, and I've watched, I mean, you've had very productive conversations, and you're bringing us a recommendation to give money to something, right? And so I expect that BET is having a thorough conversation about that. And when I've watched online, I mean, you are, so I guess I'm a little confused by that response. Because to me, you have these discussions, flesh it out, and then you bring the recommendation to us, and then we make a final approval. And most of the time, we end up voting the same way as the recommendation, knowing that you all, who are extremely intelligent, sat around the table and have fleshed it out and vetted it and talked through all the things before it comes here. So I'm just asking that you take the experts' numbers and you have this dialogue together. And I don't expect that it's going to be all done tomorrow. It's going to be ongoing conversations, and it may be for years ongoing conversations. So I don't know, is that still confusing?
Well, I can't answer that question for you because we have a group of 8 people that sit around the table. So I'm here, delivering the message that the group had. I may have an understanding of what I think you're saying. That doesn't mean that the other 7. So I think what's important is that each one of you explain what, your expectation is to your particular member, and then we can kind of move forward from there. To Mr. Warren's point, there's just so many moving parts right now. We normally have not collectively approached a project from the beginning trying to design it. It's more when Mr. Warren came forward and said we're going to have new judges. So since we're going to have more judges, we need this many more clerks and the courtrooms, and then they provide, this is the salaries that we need, the budget we need for that, for M&O, for capital. We vet that information, but we don't go out and do independent research and determine what those costs should be over here, over there. And so this is a little bit different. This is, a little broader than what the approach that we've taken in the past. I'm not saying we shouldn't take a broader approach, it's just we haven't done that, so we're wanting to try to get a little bit of clarification there.
Yeah, but you do have people come in and speak, correct?
We have had people come in and speak on certain issues in the past, but that was more related to when we were doing CARES Act stuff, and we had some folks from OIA and whatever come over and talk about some stuff. But
so you could take this, break it down, different meetings, different days, but you could have people, experts, come in and speak, because we have the commissioners' conversations, and then we have in the contracts and all of those things that we discussed earlier, but we have the budget board responsibility. And so it seems to me that if both things are happening, then we're making progress at having these really important conversations. And as Mr. Warren pointed out, this really should be a significant part of our budget. And as the commissioner pointed out, constitutional responsibility that we have. So I personally think that it would be great for BET to maybe take this and do something a little bit different instead of the way it's always been done. And to discuss each one of these items so that you can help, not just you, but as a group, and our individual staff can help us as budget board members make the best decisions possible. And also a good way, as we have questions, to send to our designee that goes to those our BET meetings, so that in the weeds conversations could happen more in that setting. So when we come here, we maybe have a little bit more clarification during the budget board time. So that's where I'm at. And so my motion, again, that I would like to officially make is that BET discusses and provides recommendations to the budget board regarding the new jail construction, maintenance of the current jail, and ongoing operational expenses for both facilities.
you had said regarding the new jail, that's, I think, where there might be some questions. And that's why I wanted clarification earlier regarding the financing of the new jail.
Yes, sir.
Because when we just say the jail, then we think, well, are we trying to determine the number of detainees that we're going to have in there and all of those aspects? And I don't think that's something that our group is.
Great point. Great point. So amend to BET discuss and provide recommendations to the budget board regarding the finances of the new jail, finances of new jail, maintenance of current jail, and ongoing operational expenses for both facilities.
Yeah.
So that way it sticks with the financial piece of it to clarify.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's the motion?
Yes, sir.
I think I'll second it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I kind of think this is the cart in front of the horse, with all due respect at this point. First off, 17 days ago is when we knew for sure we were going to get to build a mental health facility. And the 3 weeks leading up to that, I personally didn't think it was going to happen. So things were starting to disintegrate in those plans. So it's not that we're here without a plan. It's that we now know what we can do with the green light thanks to the Attorney General in that regard. The other is our Citizens Committee, which is comprised of subject matter experts, have been discussing this and have been meeting. They're trying to help, from my conversations with them, to recommend to us the best appropriate size facility, because they're going to do it without regard to politics. They're just going to say, in my professional opinion, from the data we've received from CJAC and others, this is the size that you need to have a functional facility. Then we're going to know what the cost is going to be and what the operational costs are going to be. I think we're very close to that, so I don't think this is a conversation that'll be off very much further. But it wasn't just the mental health facility we found out 17 days ago. We maybe weren't even going to get to build a jail 17 days ago on the selected site. We were still in limbo about that, and if it had gone off into litigation, that could have been something that lasted up to 2 years. So we would have had this conversation going on a lot further. With regards to the mental health facility, we have to use it for the intended purpose for the ARPA funds. That's the only thing we can do with that, since it was what it was earmarked for. We got to get started on that so that we can complete it in time before the U.S. Treasury deadline. And then finally, with regards to the jail, it was a dictate from the voters. They told us that we're going to have to do this, so we're trying to do what we can with what they gave to offer, and there's going to be a shortage. We know that, and so we're going to have to contemplate a plan. But for all the stakeholders in the community that would help us with any kind of an advocacy for that, they've said you got to certified what the goalpost is going to be so that we know what the cost is. It can't keep moving down the road in the debate about the facility. So we're close in all those conversations. I have had requests from the mental health secretary. She and I have just not been able to meet yet. So I don't know. I can't speak to what Commissioner Davidson just spoke about. So when you ask me for a comment, I'm not prepared for that today. But I think that BET would be asked in some sense to replicate the work of our citizen committee that have already been delving into this. And the BET would be asked to run kind of an open-ended pursuit, because you don't know yet until everything is certified. Chairman Steve Mason visited with me yesterday and said that their committee was taking up next a discussion about cost and what this was going to look like, and they were going to give us something, based on their expertise that would help us give some instruction to BET about, okay, this is what we're looking at if we proceed forward. But to your point, we don't have enough money at this point to start. So my conversation all along in the community was, these are not immaterial questions, but it wasn't, if we didn't have a place to build the land on, it was all a moot point. And if we weren't sure where we were going to be given clearance from other jurisdictional authorities, then it was a moot point. So we just got that resolved 17 days ago. And now we know what we were inchworming along the best we could up to that point with design plans and stuff that were admittedly specific to that site. All that would have gone to the garbage if we had to go pick another location. So we now know that we can crystallize those and start coming up with a finalized plan. I think it will happen very soon. I think the Citizens Committee in their very next meeting is planning on delving into this very topic.
I appreciate that update, and I actually think that all that information is stuff that BET would be able to use. And again, with this item, there's not a specific start date or end date, so I think BET would make the judgment, and probably the chairman, to decide at what point this becomes an official agenda item. I do know on Wednesday, October 2nd, this board had a unanimous vote to have BET look at it, and that was well before 17 days ago. So I would really like to encourage us to continue to pass this motion so that we are giving clear, hopefully, directive to BET, but the chairman would use your judgment as to at what point it becomes an agenda item based off of collecting information.
I'm not a commissioner. I'm not responsible for the jail to be built. My chief deputy is brilliant about assessor's duties, but he's not an expert on construction. And it seems that we're creating two trails to accomplish the same goal. And I've got my chief deputy and Marcy Hoffman in meetings all the time with BET, and I don't need them to go down a rabbit hole on a construction plan when that's not my responsibility. I'm running the
They're not
assessor's
looking
office,
at a
which is running
construction
the
plan,
clerk.
they're looking at the finances, which is BET's responsibility.
But those are issues that are being discussed outside this building with people who have the responsibility designated by the commissioners to resolve those issues.
So we have the responsibility to pay for it.
But that's when it comes back to us when they get the information gathered and they can present a report. I don't need my chief deputy and my top assistant in more meetings to do something that they're not going to be in control of, and they're gathering information that's going to be double tracking what's already been tried.
I think Brian articulated it very well. I think his explanation of what's going on, where we're at, what the goalposts are, and what our goals are. I think you did a very good job. I think you cleared it up for us very well, and that was good information.
We've gotten so far away from the agenda item, I can't believe that we were allowed to do this. But
We don't have a DA.
yeah, we do. Anyway, to me, we got one of two choices. We can either go with a motion that's already on the, to be covered now, or we can pass along information based upon what we've heard from Brian and others. Never mind BET, we were wrong. Don't you stay out of the jail right now. Those are the two conclusions. So which ones do we want to do?
It's not that they're wrong. I just think that we'll have more information
If
for
I
them.
use the word wrong, I don't mean wrong. But the question, remember, what we're trying to answer a question that Cody, a very valid question, has brought to us. And maybe the question is, or maybe the answer is, take no action on it. We'll get back to you.
Well, and if I understand the agenda item is to clarify the direction that was given to BET on October 2nd, when we did unanimously vote to have BET look at it. So since I made that motion in October, I was prepared to come with the new motion. And so I hope that we have clarified that. And I know that there's, a motion and a second to vote to clarify the vote that we all voted yes on October 2nd.
And I think, Commissioner, to your point, once I'm assuming once that information is gathered and you kind of know the number of bed facility that BOCC is contemplating building, once you know that number, then the architects can kind of pin down a good construction cost. I would assume that information would go to policy and governance for them to discuss. Once policy and governance discusses that and has that solid information, I think policy and governance can reach out to me, and then I can put the agenda item on at BET to begin those conversations at that point, once we have the relevant information that we will need to be able to make a clear, articulable recommendation.
I think that is great and very transparent and a clear process for not only us to understand, but the public.
I appreciate everybody's willing to help us, and this in no way is an us versus them. And I just don't want anybody's time to be wasted when I think, we've got people that are involved that are helping us get the answers and be more formative to know how to draw a conclusion. But I appreciate everybody's sentiment here on the budget board to recognize we're going to have some heavy lifting ahead of us and that you're interested in the subject.
So, right. Would you want to remove your motion? Withdraw your second?
No, because just to remind, the agenda item was to clarify a vote that we all voted yes on October 2nd. So this motion is a motion to clarify that vote that we all voted yes on.
Which will be our clear and guiding principles that we're going to operate on once we get the information from policy.
Yes, sir. So it does at time, and it is within the budget board, the BET meetings So if you choose to create additional meetings for any topic, that is up to the chairman and the group. But within the BET meetings you already have scheduled. So I am not personally asking for additional meetings. I'm just asking for it to be through the process and clear to the public. Sorry, clear to BET.
All right, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
Nope. Motion passes 4-3.
No, it fails.
What? Pull that
Takes
back up.
5.
Oh, it takes 5. Okay. Thank you.
It doesn't recognize the particular statute for the vote for budget board.
Okay, so it takes 5. All right. Motion fails. For clarification.
Are
Thank
we,
you.
and we all know where that 5 came from, we need to revisit that whole issue again, especially when we've only got 7 members.
I believe it's statutory, Madam DA.
No, it's not.
Come on down, please.
In fact, using that logic, 4 is what it would take on a 7-member board. And that's all we've got now is a 7-member board.
I believe it is statutory, but I have to double check and look at the statute before I say one way or
I
another.
think this issue's come up with both when Sheriff Wetzel and Tim Rhodes resigned. We dealt with this before.
But would you be willing to clarify for us?
Sure, if you give me a few minutes.
I remember when John retired, we had that issue come up and they said it was statutory, so.
I don't okay.
Well, she's going to look it up and she can clarify it at that point. So,
I mean, this goes back, how far it goes back to a very beloved man. John Jacobson was the one that made that original decision. That's how far back it goes. And again, well, of course, the question now is on a 7-member board, because that's all we are until we have an election. Does it take 4 or does it take 5? That's the question.
Normally they let the court clerk vote twice.
How are you going to vote?
I don't know.
You can vote both ways.
I'm fighting.
cover both bases. All right, item 34 is actually mine. This is one of the normal transfers from M&O to salary, not to exceed 100,000.
Motion approved.
Thank you. There's a motion. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion clearly passes. 35, discussion on resolution 2025-0179, transfer of $5 million. This is the accompanying item that you referenced.
From item 27, that
Yes,
is
sir.
correct. 27 is appropriation, and this is the cash.
There you go. So
Motion.
there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Punch your button. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? There we go. Butch is on track now. All right, item 36, Mr. Compton.
Okay, this was briefly discussed earlier. Jessica had brought it up. We had positioned the finance specialist for the BOCC was kind of separate and apart, and they were being paid for out of the commissioner's account. There's been a change at the BOCC level to move them under HR, so it makes sense that they would be paid for out of HR. HR is the one that's managing them. So this recommendation is moving the remaining funds that are in the commissioner's account to pay for salaries, benefits, M&O, and capital associated with that employee, moving those funds from the commissioner's account into the HR account. This only addresses the one position. The grant writer position is similar. I'm assuming that in the near future we will probably have an agenda item. The position's not filled right now, so it wasn't discussed, but at some point we will be back having, I'm assuming that we'll be back having a recommendation for that position as well. So this isn't an increase in funding or anything. It's just moving it from one place to another. I would like to also mention on the watch list earlier, whenever I mentioned we didn't have a change, we did have one addition. It was $25,000 for juvenile for some M&O that they may need at the end of the year. We're just tracking it. No urgent thing, but I mentioned earlier we didn't have a change, and we actually did have that addition. So,
Motion transfer.
Second.
There's motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Seeing none. Brings us to item 37.
Already done that.
And we've already done that one because the judge was here. You're correct. Thank you, sir. Citizen participation. We didn't get any. Looks like we have a legal opinion.
It takes 5 votes.
Regardless of this.
It only takes 5 for a quorum, and in case you have a budget board that meets with only 5 members, it has to be a unanimous vote. It's
That's
5
what that
no matter
says.
what.
Yes.
Answer hasn't changed. That's what we got last time.
I appreciate it. Seeing no citizen comments, we'll start with Mr. Mon.
None.
Commissioner.
Many of you may remember Mike Means, our former assessor, great guy. It's his birthday today, so happy birthday, Mike.
I do have one. Best wishes to former Commissioner Calvi, who will have his 8th child today. I think actually more with Mrs. Calvi.
Right. Those are condolences with Mrs. Galvey. Yes.
I hate to let this go. I know everybody wishes I would, but that defies logic. And if that's what the statute says, we've been known to go out and try to get statutes changed before. It defies logic that if 5 makes a quorum, but then because of that, you have to have 100% on every motion. That defies logic. So I sure would like to see somebody work on that issue again.
How about it? Mr.
Oh, you don't want that.
Sure. This afternoon is Neil McCaleb's funeral, and so lots of prayers with his family. And many of you know Mr. McCaleb. He did a tremendous amount, and his resume is very long and incredibly impressive. And somebody I got to work closely with many years ago, and he will be missed. So just wanted to say thoughts and prayers to his family during this time.
Absolutely. Mr. Warren.
Monday is Martin Luther King Day. Great man. Man had a dream, and I want everybody to enjoy their holiday on Monday because I think it's a very special day.
No comment.
Really?
Let me comment for the sheriff.
No. Okay. There's a motion to adjourn without objection. That'll be the order. Seeing no objection. We stand adjourned.